Let me be a little bit personal, having flown both times, round engines to radial engines from Pratt & Whitney, long wings, around the circular fuselage, housing up to 24 passengers in very reasonable comfort. The only thing compared to today is that, of course, it's not pressurized. Because they were big, up to 24 passengers, and so they needed feeders to be able to go to what was not at the time already called hubs. Pratt & Whitney's 985s, 500 horsepower per side. And 8 seats in the cabin, and together the same type of crews were used on somewhere with 90,000 hours of flight time. They tried to break it, and they finally, technically speaking, intellectually speaking, they could last forever because they're so well built. The Classic was an adventure. Was also built in Los Angeles by Lockheed. And in the end, it became a very good. But at the time, look at this machine. Ghisonaccia was known because of its Ghisonaccia Gare like rail station. Ghisonaccia Gare was announced. They were mostly engaged in bombing northern Italy. That you could see the wind, which is a good thing for an aircraft designer. His name was Clarence Johnson. Look at that. Wow. Al Hibbert, who was the chief designer at Lockheed at the time. Kelly Johnson was 25 years old, by the way, and they wanted to design a very slim, twin-engine, long-range, heavy fighter in order to be able to escort fortresses, mostly B-17s like the one taxiing now, and succeeded in designing a spaceship for the era. The P-38, the twin-boom Wonder, Whispering Wonder, was equivalent to a spacecraft. With two Allison engines, V12 engines, pressed there, and hence the superchargers, the turbos. So they needed space to be able to put the turbos somewhere, and they ended up doing this boom design with, in front of the boom, propellers on each side. You want to be able to cool the whole thing. Logically, at the end of the booms, what do? You put the tail, the empennage, the twin tails, and the interesting thing, look at the P-38. The interesting thing is that before the P-38, to the engine, and their design, despite the fact that one of them is twin boom and the other now, their design is roughly the same. It's a demonstration in using good. If I win some kind of lottery, that's the one I'll buy. Strange machine. Designed by a German engineer who had fled Germany in the mid-30s. And then he wanted to make an aircraft flying very fast, and he went to see a Hungarian-born genius who was head of aerodynamics at the California Technology Institute, Herr von Karman. And the aircraft they worked on, Karman designed an F4U, which was Christian's supercritical. And the aircraft was built by a Los Angeles-based company, North American, another Angelina company, headed by a gentleman from Holland. Dutch origin. And the end result was extraordinary, which was finally flown to England, and the British test pilot who flew it here in 1991. The Mustang, as it was nicknamed, its real name was statistically speaking, was an icon. This aircraft became an icon in the history of aviation. The P-51s, by flying now. The solar is the next. That's fantastic. And in a few minutes we'll have the B-17G about the main solar that 51 like this one, where the junction goes to Los Angeles, north of Los Angeles, very high. The idea of a checklist is to take care of everything before going to fly and during the flight. The checklist was invented for B-17 after the first one crashed with the controls locked on a mountainside near Seattle. It's taking into account the complexity of the machine, taking about emotion. In fact, Ellie is the fifth engine on that aircraft. It's run on aviation through flying leg. Complicated to the air. For instance, the whole like the one which in terms of military aviation, derive from one basic design. They don't have a tail wheel which can be used from the cockpit. They have a skid, and at the time when and they have no brakes as we know them today, which meant that at the time when you were flying a military aircraft, it was considered normal to land on grass and use a skid at the end of the barricades and mosquitoes, for instance, which is a B-12 configuration. But they were still biplanes on your face, hence only a small windshield in front of you and no glass cockpit. These engines were bolted to wooden propellers, fixed pitch propeller, which were two-bladed, which were very simple, but at the same the Messerschmitt 109. The German equivalent of the Spitfire or the Hurricane, or an aircraft which is and it was still being built in call-out production in 1945 at the end of the war. The 109 is a very small airframe, quite elegant, with small wings, and wings using, despite, for instance, the Spitfire, which were at the time not revolutionary but quite up to date, like slats, automatic slats, which open in front of the leading edge of the wing. When you fly at low speed, the slats extend and they will direct the airflow on top of the wing and make it fly better. At the same time, at the drag, was headed by one of the geniuses biplanes on squadron use, and this was the Gladiator. There are 2 Gladiators flying in the world, and here they are today in front of you. The Gladiator was designed at Gloucester's and produced by Gloucester's, and really was the end of an era, the end of the biplane. It had some of the characteristics of the soon-to-come Italian Air Force and the Luftwaffe. And for a short period, of course, but for a short period, they were the only 3 aircraft flying it. The Messerschmitt in front of us are flown by Cliff Spink, John Romain, and the Gladiators are flown by Nick Gray and Mr. Millenship. The Gladiator was entirely made at Bristol's, and even the engine at the time, some of the big aviation manufacturers were also engine manufacturers, and Bristol had developed a series of very interesting round engines, radial engines. Radial engine, normally you find the same arrangement on the Blenheim.